Hey guys, Shawn here with TDSJ. Today I'm going to be going over some reloading that I do with my 12 gauge, and some of the things that you need to learn or to know before you actually get into reloading is certain powders, what shot you're going to need, what shell you're going to be reloading. Every shell has different pressures that they can withstand, and stuff like that. Certain reloading guides and stuff that you have to get. So one of the first things that I did, my first mistake that I did, was I went ahead and bought a Lee's Load All reloader off Amazon for about, I don't know, I want to say maybe about $60, thinking that it would have all the information that I needed to reloading, and boy was I wrong. So basically, all my reloader came with was a guide. Well, not really a guide, I guess just like a user manual on, what it comes with, the powders. It goes through and explains, the shot, different dyes. Then it came with this Reload All charting tables. It kind of breaks down, your size of shell, the powders that you can use, and then it gives you the bushing numbers for the correct measurement of shot, as well as your gunpowder. So with this information, I went down to my my local sporting store, Sportsman's Warehouse, and attempted to buy lead shot and shotgun powder. And the guy at the counter asked me if I was reloading, and I told him yeah. I kind of explained my whole situation, and then he then began to tell me that I needed to get a shotgun reloading book, guide on how to reload, basically learn what powders work best. It gives you, velocity and pressure, readouts and stuff like that. Now, these readouts are good in a way, but that's all going to change depending on, the climate where you live, the temperature outside, humidity and all that. Different gunpowders that you use affect that. Your shotgun, your choke and everything else. I mean, there's thousands of variables that go in with that end of it. I've actually never tested out the velocity or the feet per second or anything with that. If any of my shells, I don't have the fancy equipment to do that. But that's something that maybe I'd like to do in the future. So the book that he recommended me getting was the 5th edition Shot Shell Reloading Handbook. And this has a lot of good information. I mean, it goes over, different shot shells, single stage reloaders, which is what I have. And then it goes into, multiple stage and, just a whole bunch of information. So the recipe that I'm using, that's what they call it anyways, recipes when you look it up. So the recipe that I'm using is for Winchester shells. And I'm using tightwad powder, and says that I need to use, let's see, where is it? Right here. So I'm using powder is my tightwad, my charge, which would be how much gunpowder you put in, and it's asking for 20 grams. My Winchester primer, I'm using Winchester 209 primers, and then it wants you to use a wad column of WAA12L. I'm actually using a clone of that because they didn't have any. The guys, they were really good at helping me out, figuring out the clone for the wad. And I'll get into all this too. I'll show you different things that I have and explain it a little better. But the book says the velocity, or the feet per second, it's going to give me with this shell is 1,327 feet per second with a pressure of 9,300. So, I mean, these shells have been pretty good. I basically reload and then use them for shooting clays, just target practice. We've taken a couple out for rabbit hunting and all that. So yeah, it's been quite fun. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera and then move it off to the side here a little bit and then get a better shot of my reloader and how I set that up and certain things that I've used, and I'll show you the dies that I'm using for those measurements and all that with this reloader for these shells, and then we'll go ahead and get into some reloading. So stay tuned. Thanks. Okay, so we're back. So this is the front of my Lee's Load-All. So on the top of it, it comes with this nifty little carry case with all of your dies for your shot measurements as well as your powder measurements. I usually set this aside when I'm actually operating the machine because the lid for the top actually fits on there pretty nice, as you can see. So I usually set, just the whole canister aside. Now what's cool about this is the slide for your dies, you can actually take it off. Now what's neat about this is you can change the dies, like I said, for certain measurements for different, shots, shot weight, powder measurements. But the one big downfall I've noticed about this machine is that when you need to switch out your dies for different measurements for powder and or shot, once you take this slide out, both your gunpowder and your shot will just spill all over the place. So I've learned after using this for a short while to not fill this all the way up unless I'm reloading a whole bunch of the same shell with the same size of shot and or powder. So on my chart here, I'm going to be reloading these Winchester shells. So the die that I need for roughly right around 20 grams of gunpowder is die 163. So I've got that here, so that's what this looks like here. And they're all labeled on the front. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it says 163, and that's the size. And so when this is installed, this is going to be your powder hopper, and this is going to be your shot hopper. So this is pretty easy. It just slides right in, just like so. Fills that hole. So now you're ready for powder. And then the shot that I'm using is, I believe, 7.5 for clays, and it's 7/8 of an ounce. So that's the hopper for that, the size that I use, and that just goes in the opposite one, just like so. So once this is in, and another thing that you got to remember too is when you're filling your powder, or when you start to reload, make sure that this is slid all the way over to the gunpowder side, because that will go in first, then your shot. So make sure before you dump your powder and your shot in there that this is slid over. And then this front plate, oh, sorry about the camera. This front plate here screws on to the front. Make sure we're still in focus. Sorry about the camera. Focus here. We'll zoom it in a little bit. So you can see this. So on the front of here there's 2 screw holes, and then this plate actually holds in your slide, and it's just held on by 2 screws. One goes on either side, one there and one here. Come on, fingers. Just like that. And then we'll use a flathead to tighten down. Maybe. Okay, just like that. So now that that's on there, and this can slide back and forth, but you can't pull it out anymore. So now my dies are in there. Then this is the powder, like I said, that I'm using. It's called Tightwad. It's a 4-pound jug of powder. I bought this at Sportsman's Warehouse, I think, for like 40 something, might have been even like 50. So I mean, it's a pretty decent buy for this much powder, if you're kind of going on the cheap end of powder anyway. And then, like I said, that just goes in here into your powder hopper, which is this guy right here. So we'll dump a little bit of him in there. That's good for the little bit of reloading we're going to do today. And then the other hopper, like I said, is for your shot. And the shot that I'm using today is Hot Shot. It's made by Hot Shot. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but it's actually 7.5. And that's the actual size of the shot, so it's pretty small. Let's see if I can grab some out and show the camera without spilling them all over the garage. But it's just really small shot, as you can see, and it's lead, so it's not duck hunting compatible, unfortunately. So then you just dump that in there. So now I've come to realize while reloading that I usually burn through twice the amount of shot than I do gunpowder. And yeah, I just go through more. That's why I filled the shot up a little bit more. Now, one other thing that I like to do is I like to get one of my wads. So this is a wad. So this is what the wad looks like that I'm using. It's a Clay's wad, clone wad that'll fit 7/8 of an ounce shot. And what I like to do is tape it, just the top of it. Leave the shot cup open. Now, why I do that is for my shotgun powder. Now, what I like to do when I first start reloading the first couple of times is I'll place the cup. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I place the wad here in the feeder. Actually, you know what? We'll go below that. We'll just put it right here in the feeder. And then I'll slide the powder over, and that should dump powder into my cup. But before I put the powder in there, I just realized I messed up on something. I bought one of these scales from my local smoke shop that'll do various measurements. And so what I'll do is I'll turn this on, put it on a flat surface here, and I'll put the wad that's taped up on the plate to measure it, and I'll clear it so it's zeroed out at 0, 0. So right now it just measures what this weighs. Then what I like to do, now that I've messed that up, I gotta dump the shot back in. Now what I'll do is I'll measure out the gunpowder back up into the cup, and I'll place it on top of the scale here. I'm going to move the camera, so bear with me here so you guys can get a shot of this. So there's the scale, there's the shot cup, and I'm measuring out 19.8 grams of gunpowder. So that's roughly right around 20 where the chart said that I needed to be for reloading, which is good. Let's get you set back over here. Okay, so then I'll redump the powder back in. I'll cycle it again back over to the powder, dump the shot back in, and then I'll give it a couple of taps. Then I'll retest the powder again to see if we weigh out any different. So now with that shot, just tapping it and then recycling it again, I'm all the way back up to 20.4. Here, I'll move that again. See, so there's 20.4, there's the cup that I just poured. Now this is getting closer to what the chart said. So the shot measurement of the shot measurement should be about 20.6. Or I mean 20. Yeah, so about 19.6. So it's a little high right now, but that should level it out here shortly, as we go along, or stay consistently about the same. Now I'll check this about, usually a couple times when I start, and then about halfway through the reloading process. And and then closer to the end to make sure that everything is staying kind of consistent with the pressure and all that. So I'm going to move the camera again, back it up a little bit, and then we'll go over the primers that I'm using and how to set up the rest of the station. Okay, and we're back. Okay, another thing that I want to go over too is the quality of your shotgun shell. Now, I reload everything from Federal to, you know, estate shells to universal to, I mean, everything. I go to the gun range, I'll shoot a couple, you know. Even when I go out to shoot clays, I'll pick up all the leftover shells. I'll pick up, you know, shells when I'm out duck hunting. And so there's different kinds of shells when you go out. And we'll do a shell video of like high brass shells and, you know, 410 shells and stuff like that in a later video. But I wanted to show you something here that you got to kind of watch out for when you're reloading, and that's the quality of your shell. So on this shell here, you can see where the brass is dented. I won't reload that. I won't. Even if I could size that out and recrimp it, I just won't. And I mean, there's like a pinhole there. And then you got your crimps up here are tearing. I won't reload any shells that are like that either. Or if the shells are, you know, mangled or flattened out, you know, if they're smashed like this. If they're smashed like that, I won't reload them. And that's just something that's personal for me. You know, because it's basically an explosion. It is. It's, you know, and I don't want to harm myself or, you know, my brothers or brother-in-law or my dad or, you know, anyone else that's out there on the range shooting, or any hunter that might be walking by or anything, you know, with a faulty shell. So if there's anything that's like that, it just goes right into the trash bucket. So getting started with this, the primers, I buy, let's see, about 1,000 primers. They all come in their own individual sleeve. So this is the Winchester primers, 4-shot shells, W209. They come in a tray like this. That's what they all look like. I usually take about a row out and just set them here on the table. So that's what all these are. So let's get started with some of these Winchester Light 8s. So these are low brass shells that I'm using now. The first step is to put the sizing die. This will smash your brass and resize it to how it should be. So then, as you can see, I've got the spent primer in there, and that just goes right into the first stage right here. Just like that. So this is the depriming and the sizing stage. So then what you do is you just put it in there and then you smash it down all the way. You got to make sure it goes all the way down the handle. Okay, so now as you can see, this is flat. It's smashed it all the way down. It's resized my brass, and it's also deprimed it. So when you do this, in this little tray down here, when you deprime them, the primers will fall down in here, and then I just use a magnet and pull them out and then throw them away. So then the next step is to get a unused primer and put it in the second stage. The second stage will put the primer back into the shot shell and then remove the sizing cup off the shell. Just like that. See, so now it's off. We got a new primer in there. Then we'll move into the third station. Oh, you know what? I'm glad that I caught that. When I was measuring it out, I forgot to switch it back. So I have now got gunpowder going in instead of my shot shells. Let's make sure no BBs got into that. Okay, we put that back in there. Then we just lower it down all the way. Give it a couple of taps. Slide it all the way over. Just like that. So now we've loaded our gunpowder into our shotgun shell. Then the next step is to grab a new wad, which I got here. You place it on top. Then I like to guide it down in. Now be careful when you're doing that if you do it, because it'll actually pinch your fingers right here. And then you press that all the way down as far as it'll go, and then you slide your shot over. Now we've just dumped shot into the cup. You lift up and the shot goes in there. I'll show you that. See, now we've got shot in there on top of our wad. And then we come over to the crimping, the first crimp. Now you'll see these little notches on here on the shot shell, and I like to line up one of the notches facing towards me. Then you just go down, you do the first crimp, and you want that to be about the size of an eraser when you do the first crimp. See how close that is? You want that to be about the diameter of an eraser. Then you move over here to the final crimp stage and you do the final crimp on it. Just like that. And you crimp it all the way down, and there we go. There's a reloaded shotgun shell. Now I'll reload these about 12 times, give or take, you know, depending on how well the shotgun shell holds up. You know, after all the use and stuff that I use them, you know, some last longer, some don't. So let's do a couple more. Deprimed and resized. Oh, we need to add a new primer. So there's a new primer. Remove the sizer. New primers in there. Add the the gunpowder. Add the wad. Add the shot. Crimp it. First crimp. Last crimp. Now, if you'll notice here on this is what we like to call dishing. Dishing is when it bows in. And I forgot the other term, but there's another term too if you put too much shot in there. If it's overshot, if you got your shot bushing wrong, you'll put too much shot in there and it'll actually bow out when you crimp it. That's not good. I usually will redo the dishes, but that's actually not too bad of a dish. I'll use that. So it's not too bad. So here's another. This is actually a Winchester AA heavy. So we'll see how this one loads up with the same stuff. Now I can usually, oh, I forgot the primer. I can usually reload about 200 shells with this, you know, roughly an hour. You know, that's a decent amount of shells in that time. With this reloader, in all, I probably have reloaded roughly over 1,000 shells. Now, yes, I have not shot that many with my shotgun, but I have definitely reloaded that many so far. So yeah, so there's another one. So yeah, if you have any questions with this, you know, feel free to ask. I'll help you out as much as I can. I don't reload handgun ammo or any of that quite yet. I'm not set up for it. I don't have all the you know, specialty equipment that you need for that. It is something that I would like to hopefully get into one day. But for right now, I'm just stuck to my 12 gauge shotgun reloading. So yeah, it's not too bad. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for more. Thanks. Bye.